Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I rank the Santa Claus cards that were made by every single brand in 1993 for the NFL Properties Santa Claus card pack wrapper redemption set. And this is a really interesting set where prior to 1993, there had been Santa Claus cards being made by Pro Set and Pro Line every single year. It was a great tradition that they were carrying on, and it was enough that it was becoming an NFL tradition. So the NFL decided, well, why don't we do a promo set where every single card company can basically introduce themselves to audiences with a special card that they design however they want to design it. So they could do a base brand or they could do a premium brand, or however they wanted to make a Santa Claus card, it was theirs to make. And this card set includes 12 different cards made by 12 different companies. There's also a 13th card, a title card. And the title card is kind of a carryover from the tradition of what Pro Set had been doing. It's kind of a stock Santa Claus kind of image, which it looks really nice. It's a very standard card. It makes sense for being a title card, and it's kind of like a mid-tier design. So it basically sets forward the idea of, okay, which cards are not at this level and which cards have actually surpassed it. It really does work as a great datum. Now, it's very difficult for any card to match up the early Pro Set cards, so don't even assume that any of these will match that level. But it still is a really great card set regardless. With all of these designs, it's a lot of fun to look at it. And so ranking these 12 different designs is quite an exploration of the creativity each card company had. And who showed the least creativity? Well, that would be Collector's Edge. Now, the Collector's Edge card has two problems. The first problem is the shot of Santa, the image of Santa. This is actually a combination. It is a picture of a football player, a quarterback. This guy is in really good shape. I mean, he's got a great physique. He has almost no muscle mass at all, for all intents and purposes. And that's a bit jarring. Also, the pose is a little bit too energetic for Santa. It doesn't really carry as Santa. And on top of that, he doesn't have a helmet, but he does have a face mask. It's just a face mask in front of a beard. And it really is kind of a jarring effect. The whole way that it looks, it just doesn't look right in any way. And then even when you look at the back, it's a tight shot of the player, the face of the player, and it really, really does not look like Santa. It just doesn't make sense. And that is problematic enough. I mean, that would basically have it right down toward the bottom. But this card has an inconsistency of either how the card was finished or the aging process. And so, like in this card is very, very orange. It's a bright orange effect, and I don't like how it comes across. I mean, it looks terrible. Now, fortunately, we can see what it looks like with a really dark red because we have, God invented Photoshop. Thank you for that. And so as you can see, with the dark red, it looks a lot better. The picture still doesn't look good, but the rest of the card does look good. Now, it appears that you can get some of these cards with the dark red, but so many of them come as an orange. There's no consistency. And I'm not used to Collector's Edge cards aging poorly. I don't remember the cards getting all washed out, so I don't know if this is a production issue or what, but it really hurts overall because you can't just open one of these and expect to see the card in its best form. Regardless, the shot on the front pretty much puts this on the bottom by itself, so this is very comfortably where it is. And sadly, the next one up is Pro Set. How Pro Set could have fallen this far is, partially based upon who was running the company. But regardless, this card is just not good in any way. The biggest problem is the setting of Santa. Now, I get that the Super Bowl was going to be in Atlanta, so it made sense to have Georgia peaches and the peach background, but it doesn't feel like Christmas at all. It really feels cheap. Even in Georgia. I mean, I spent many years in Savannah, Georgia, and Christmas was Christmas. It was Christmas Eve. There was nothing of this sort was done. It doesn't have a feel that fits with the holiday season. And that's really where this card has the first big problem. The second problem is the art itself is just not very good. Now, you couple that with the fact that the back of the card looks like some cheap promo. I get that these cards are promos, but for crying out loud, these are supposed to show off what the card what the card brand brings, and this does not bring it. This doesn't show what Pro Set could really do with a card back. Granted, they weren't quite at the level they had been in the past, but still, this wasn't even trying to be like the cards. So I've never liked the card back on this. Obviously, I've never liked the card front. And I'm not giving them half credit for the fact that they styled everything to be in the shape of Texas. That's not, I actually don't think it helps it. I think it kind of hurts it, but it was a cute trick that they tried. But yeah, at the end of the day, nah. Moving up to number 3, though, here we go with a card that is done exactly the way that it was in packs, and that's Pacific Prism. And that ends up being the problem that it has. Now, I don't mind the card back, the way that that was carried across, that's fine. The problem I have is with the image and the contrast to the prism effect. The image is just like a stock Santa shot. There's nothing special about it. I mean, really, it doesn't even look like they tried to make Santa look any way. It's almost like some guy was over at the mall walking over to his station and they just said, hey, click, and that's all it is to it. But you can't even really tell because the effect of the prism effect around the outside completely overpowers it. If you're going to have a card, a cutout shot of a player on a card with a prism effect like this, the shot has to carry. And with most of the shots of football players, that actually worked. The way that the shot was selected, the energy of the player, it all worked well enough so that as they were isolated, it read. The problem with this is that the Santa image doesn't pull you in. And that's a really jarring effect. So the card does not succeed at all. He just gets buried in the card. That's not good at all. Now it's interesting that I go up to the 4th from the bottom for Pro Line. I look at this and I can't figure out why Pro Line is this high up the list. The fact that there are 3 cards that I consider worse is really telling about those 3 cards. Pro Line Classic was not a great design to begin with. They have that big color band down one side, but at least when you have players on a team that line up, it kind of helps because you can see that they're all related on one team. With this card, it doesn't do that at all. I don't like the colors they chose. So many of these cards use kind of a darkened red, and it almost has a burnished effect to it that just doesn't read as well as a bright red would. And that's really a big part of it. But the big thing here is that the art itself isn't really great art. But the one saving grace about this card is the fact that the art really isn't terrible either. It's not, it's not great, but it's not the worst thing in the world. And as I look at it, I have a lot of appreciation for what they were doing. That's something I can't say about the other 3. And that's why this one is up here. So it's not, I've never liked it, but it doesn't bother me like the other 3. But then we move into the mid-tier, and that starts off with Topps. Now, in the case of the Topps card, this is, I like the idea that they have kind of a comic booky-like effect to this. It's fun fun art that they created, and I'm okay with that. What's weird about this card is that it's almost like looking at a Bazooka comic. Of course, then when you look at the back of the card, you realize it is a Bazooka comic. That's really kind of what it is. Which is strange that here with the Topps card, they're advertising Bazooka, which by 1993, I'm trying to remember if they were doing anything with Bazooka at this point. I know they'd done it before, but it's a weird cross-brand game that they played. The one thing I like about the card is the fact that if you look at the front, you'll notice it's off-center. Now, I went and did a little bit of research to figure out, is it just my card? And what I realized is this card is just as off-center as all the other cards. It moves around. Sometimes it's dead center, but most of the time it's off-center. And nothing says Topps like an off-centered card. I mean, they go hand in hand. So it provides a campy quality to the card that I think really helps it. I don't think it's quite at the level of the title card, but it's a fun attempt that they made, and I love that they made this attempt. Another middling card is the one made by Pinnacle, and in this case, we got Nate Newton here, which is okay. That's fine. I don't like it when they do that because there's no Santa. This is a Santa Claus card set, and they don't have a Santa. It's a Cowboys season greetings card, which why? A lot of cards cards were centered in Texas. So the Dallas Cowboys are a big part of a number of card companies. Pinnacle very much was leaning into this. But, you know, when I think of Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, I'm not thinking Christmas and vice versa. To me, this is really kitsch. And if I was a Cowboys fan, I'd probably love it. I'm not a Cowboys fan. I don't love it. If they, you know, why didn't they go with Santa? I really wish that they had. So this is just one of those, yeah, it's a holiday card. That's kind of where I've got it. Then we've got Skybox, and Skybox was a much better card. In this case, this is exactly how you do it. This is a Skybox card done for Santa. And yes, we've already seen that, but in this case, the way that it came across to me fits very much in the set. I could see this as an additional card at the end of the set or an SP card like Pro Set was doing. This totally fits with the set. I think that in this case, the colors do work well. The fact that they're kind of muted colors works well with the art that they have because it's a drawing of Santa. It's not a picture. And so the vibrance wouldn't really work with the nature of the art that they have selected. So the way it comes across, to me, this is a true classic Santa as a football player card. I also love that on the card back, they have a really good image of the helmet, or a really good picture of the helmet. And to me, that really brings this card around full circle. It really does feel like what it's supposed to be. So to me, this is like the classic card, the classic Santa Claus card for what they were going for. It's almost like this was the card they handed around saying, this is what we're thinking of. Only they hadn't made it yet, so they didn't hand it around, so they get a bunch of crazy ideas. But this really does seem like the ideal version of all these cards. And as such, that means that basically everything above this is, in my opinion, a better card. And that starts off with Fleer. And Fleer used their 1993 Ultra design. Now, I love the art on this card. I really love it. Every time I look at it, it gets me excited because it has, you know, that whole woodlands creature feel that it has it's so distinctive. It's so special. It really carries in a way that no other card does. This is art-wise the one that grabs your attention because it's an old classic image. I mean, really classic. That's the way that it feels. It is almost jarring in a way, and that's what makes it so special. The problem that the card has, though, is that it's not done the way that the actual Ultra cards were. First off, it doesn't have the high gloss, which, okay, I admit that wouldn't really make sense for the art itself. It would be nice for the marble at the bottom, but okay, they didn't do that. I'm fine with that. What I'm not fine with is the fact that they didn't use gold foil either. Come on, man. Ultra, with Pacific, they actually did the whole prism effect. It's literally on there. And we're going to see gold foil coming up later on. In this case, they didn't do that. They left the gold foil off, and that is it's criminal. It took all of the power that this card potentially had, threw it out the window. It's gone. This card really does not have the pop that it would necessarily have if it had the gold foil. So it's a failure simply because the card had so much going for it, especially with the card design they were using, and they dropped the ball. But that leads into number 4, which is really the upper tier and the beginning of the upper tier, and that's with Playoff. Now, the Playoff art is good. Santa's fit, but that's all right. You don't really feel that because the shoulder pads, you can feel his mass anyway. You can see the beard coming out from under the helmet. That's the way you do it. See, this is what looks right. And I love Santa playing in the snow. That whole effect, I think, is a great combination, a great pairing. The way that all of that comes together, I think that the image is great. Now, is it as good as the previous one? Well, not necessarily, but here's the difference. Remember what I said about with the Ultra card missing the thing that made Ultra so cool? Well, here they have it. They have the whole tech chrome effect. And because of that, what's really cool is when you get it in the light right, it just glows. I mean, it really glows. And with all the snow that you have, that's what makes this card so special. You don't really see it with the cards in the actual football sets. But with this one, this is like what they designed the whole concept around, this card. The fact that that glow comes through, it's so special where with the Ultra card, it's the image that stands out. Here, the card is what stands out. You get it in the right light and your eye locks onto it. I love the way that the card glows. Really, really great. But there's a very clear distinction from here to the top three, which are just, they're in a league of their own, starting with Upper Deck. And in the case of Upper Deck, they have really cool, fun art, really rich colors because it's 1993 and it's Upper Deck, so that's what you would expect. But that really helps to carry the whole effect. And the card, it actually includes Joe Montana, which is really cool. He was under contract, so it made sense. But they were able to work a whole story in where here Santa Claus is catching the game-winning touchdown from Joe Montana. And the story fitting in is a fun story. But this is where the problem lies, which is if you look at the score, how is it a 26-28 game? I understand that in terms of telling the story, it has to be a tight game where they win the game from a game-winning touchdown. I get that. But how in the world can you make this card without a score of 12-25? You have to do a score of 12-25. Now, that obviously wouldn't be an offensive touchdown, but if you wanted to do a story that has 12-25, have Santa playing defense, he gets a pick six on what would have been a game-winning score. So that means that the other team is trying to win the game. It's say 12-18, and all they need to do is score a touchdown and get an extra point. He intercepts the ball, runs it the rest of the way down the field, and scores with the extra point. That puts it at 12-25. But that doesn't include Joe Montana. He doesn't factor into this. So how would you do that? Well, what if you want to be kind of prickish and say, okay, it was a 12-17 game, and they just wanted to tack an extra 2 points on, and so after he did the run back, they went for 2, and he caught the he caught the extra 2 points, which puts it at 12-25. Then you could have both of them, but Santa's a bit of a prick, which that's all right. Part of what I don't like about the score being 28-26 is why did the other team score so many points? The other team is run by a bunch of flakes. I feel like creatively they just missed the ball on it. Otherwise, I love the card. Now, if they'd fixed this and made it more cohesive, I don't think it would pop into the top two because at number 2, we got Action Packed. And this is an all-timer. I mean, this really is an all-timer. In fact, I'm kind of surprised it's here at number 2. Here they have a classic Santa Claus image. The drawing really does carry like a classic Santa Claus, not quite Coca-Cola Santa, but more of a more traditional Santa image. And it's beautiful. It's very intimate, it's very close in, but you couple that with the 3D effect of the embossing, how it comes off the card, and it takes all those classic textures and just makes it so much more rich. And the full bleed around the outside makes it even better. And they have gold foil. Are you listening, Fleer? The gold foil really helps. You know, the Action Packed logo, of course, is great, but then you also have the signature that's in gold foil. And I'm perfectly fine with Santa either having an inkwell with gold in the ink or just, you know, he's magical, that's the way it works. Either way, it just looks so wonderful. And on the back, I like the idea of having the gold foil text. I don't like the fact that you can't read it, but at least it really does stand out. But the reason this is number 2 for me personally, is I love, love, love the art on the wild card. And this is one of the rare times when you're going to hear wild card is the best at something. This is one of the few cases of that where for me, I just love the art. I've always loved this type of art. I don't know if it's a particular artist or if there was a school of art of people who were drawing like this, but for me, it's just so much fun. It's vibrant, it's lively, it's energetic. I remember, you know, not growing up with this as much as discovering it when it would come out. It always is a really fun, artistic approach. So I love that it came through. So it's the one that always grabs my eye and pulls me in. Yes, the Action Packed card is a better card, but the wild card is the one that pulls me in and really gets me locked in. So that's my number 1. But that is how I rank all the 1993 NFL Properties Santa Claus cards. I want to look at 1994 separately, and it's going to be interesting to see how card companies move to the next step. But you know, obviously none of these are at the level of the 89 or 1990 Pro Set art. Those are just a whole nother, that's the tier above the tier. That's way up in the heavens. but still some of these were really, really good. A few of them not so much. So definitely leave me comments down in the comment section of your take on all of this. Look out for the other Santa Claus, NFL Properties Santa Claus video, and I've already done a card on NFL Santa Claus cards overall. If you haven't seen that, definitely check that out. Subscribe if you haven't done so already, and thank you very much for watching.